What is up, y'all? My name is OhDough, and today we're discussing something called Nayzaga, and the tips I give you can be applied to all of the other variants of Nayzaga, which are Shockjaw, Heroic Shockjaw, and Heroic plus Shockjaw. So let's go ahead and start off by looking at the way the fight plays out. So when you first go up to Nayzaga, it'll basically do a spin and shoot out an electric bolt on the ground towards you. You can dodge the bolt, and after you dodge it, or if you don't dodge it, it'll do a DM slide through you and then back through you one more time. After doing this, it'll do one of two things, and it depends on where you and your team are in relevancy to its face. It sounds kind of funny, but it's true. If you're away from its face, it'll deploy pylons. If you're close to its face, it'll start attacking you instead, which it mostly starts off with a swipe after doing that, and the basic mechanics of Shockjaw are a swipe with either arm. It'll do a shoulder spin move around its, it'll pivot on its legs with shoulder spin move. It can do a slam move, and it does the DM slide throughout the fight. Those are the basic mechanics of Shockjaw. Now moving on to the more advanced mechanics, we have pylons. And pylons are these little electric post things that are basically two prongs in the ground that shoot electric orbs at you. And these electric orbs can do pretty good damage later on, but aside from that, they apply a status which is called shocked. If you have the shock status, you cannot heal, you cannot use potions. It's not the best time in the world. So I advise you guys to break these pylons, which can be done by just hitting them with any weapon in the game. Any weapon can break them. You can even use the pike missile to shoot them down if you want to. And aside from that, you can deflect the orbs. It's just that the timing can be kind of rough. Like, I even get hit by it because it takes practice to know the timing on it. But you can deflect them back, and they do a pretty good chunk of damage if you deflect it back. And if that is difficult for you, what you can do is just block all of the orbs using Nayzaga's body. Its body can be a shield to block every single orb if you position yourself properly. And this can be easy to do if you're solo, but if you're playing in a big group such as like 4 players, what happens is there are more pylons deployed based on the number in your party. And at 4 players, it can get pretty hectic. So I actually advise breaking pylons if you're in a 4-man group, because it can just be a hassle to even try and dodge them. And getting hit by them applies to shock status, and like I said before, not a good time. And if pylons are not fun for you, well, I got some news, because Shockjaw actually has a bigger pylon that happens during its Aether mode. And you'll know it's in Aether mode because it has really big spikes on its back. Normally it has like those small spikes, but in Aether mode it has really big yellow spikes. If it's enraged, it's red. We'll get to that in a second. But its Aether mode starts off whenever it just stands still, and it'll basically let out a roar type thing, and then shoot out a big 5-pronged pylon a short distance away. And then it'll curl up into a almost ball and get electrocuted kind of. And that can actually hit you, so either dodge it or just back up from it, because that will actually hurt you. And then after doing that, it'll send electricity to the orb, which during this whole phase, you can't interrupt it or break apart until it starts to send the electricity to the orb. You actually have a very brief moment to break apart or to stagger it during that phase. But leading up to that moment, you can't really do anything. So I would suggest, if it's not bubbly in the face or if a part doesn't look like it's about to break, run to the pylon it just deployed and start hitting that. Because if you break the pylon, that will actually stun Shockjaw and send it into a pretty long state of where it's in a staggered state. And it'll also take it out of Aether mode, which can somewhat hurt you if you're running Aether Hunter, which is a cell that makes you do more damage versus Aether mode Behemoths. But it's beneficial to have it if you have Overpower, which is damage versus stagger Behemoths. And similar to the Aether mode, there's actually an Enrage mode, which is pretty similar to the Aether mode, although it doesn't really have any new mechanic aside from Shockjaw doing more damage. And this is depicted by it turning red, and there's like a very faint sound that will also give you an audio cue, but I normally look out for if it's turning red, and you can actually dodge the aura, because when it goes Enrage, there's a big aura that happens around the boss, and this doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does hit you, and it knocks you on the ground, which is DPS loss. So it's better to try and dodge it or dodge away from it if you can. So those are the mechanics, and I want to say real quick that it will be doing its DM slide throughout the fight. It'll go through you and back through you again. That happens throughout the fight, and it's pretty quick and pretty spontaneous. You'll know it's going to happen whenever Shockjaw is turning very slowly towards you. You just get ready for it to, try and go through you with a DM slide. You can try and roll backwards to have some more time to prepare for it, but it is kind of hard to dodge most cases, most of the time. So just be aware of that. Let's go ahead and talk about the gear you should be using against Shockjaw, because this boss is somewhat unique in the sense because it actually has a pretty decent Aether mode, especially if you're new to the fight. And to do that properly, I actually have a new account that I made to do this, which is actually the account I played on my walkthrough for Dauntless for part 1, which the part 2 will be coming out sometime soon. I can't really log in to do the footage because my queue times are really long and my server wait time is really long, so I'm just waiting to do it. Server's getting fixed, but it's a matter of time. Anyway, for this build, I had the Inferno Chainblades, the Drask headpiece, the Charog chest piece, and Nasher gloves and boots with the Drask lantern. And this is the gear I used and I was able to use whenever I first unlocked Nayzaga. So there was no hardcore grinding to get this gear. This is the gear I set out with to get in the very first place, so I didn't have to waste time upgrading other gear and swap to this. And by the way, I really suggest using the Drask headpiece and the Nasher gloves for sure. Those are used in in-game builds all the time. And the Hellion Chainblades are pretty much the best in slot Chainblades currently, so if you want to, those are a really good choice to pick, a really good, pick to choose. It's a good thing to pick. And if you don't like Chainblades, don't worry, because every Hellion weapon has the exact same slots except for repeaters. Sorry to say, but repeaters have static cell slots, which are technique and mobility, so no dice on that one. But every other Hellion weapon works, so go ham, play sword, hammer, whatever you want to do. This build will work with that, and it works really well on Nayzaga itself. And taking everything I've shown you so far, let's go ahead and apply it to Heroic plus Shockshot Nayzaga, which the main difference here is that it's basically heroic, and that means it deals more damage and it's harder to kill. And aside from that, it also has something called Shielded. Objects created by the Behemoth, so in this case the pylons, are temporarily electrified, shocking players that attack them. So basically there's an electric shield around the pylons. Hitting them without +6 insulated means you get hit, you get knocked down, and you have the shock stats applied to yourself. And like I said earlier, the pylons are only a big deal if you're playing in a 4-man. So in a 4-man, you should actually try and handle the pylons, which can be done in 3 ways. So to get past the shield mechanic, you can either wait out the shield, which will disappear after a certain amount of time. You can bring +6 insulated, which basically makes it so you're immune to the shock status and you're immune to getting knocked back from hitting the shield on the pylons themselves. And finally, you can deflect the electric orb back at the pylons, which removes the shield and lets you hit it freely. So those are the 3 ways you can do it. And like I said, in a 4-man, it's important that you try and get rid of the pylons. If you're playing solo or in a duo, it's not that big a deal if you can manage it on your own. If you can't, then like I said, do these mechanics as well, get rid of them, and handle them however you choose. And since we're on the topic of fighting Heroic plus Shockshot Nayzaga, I might as well give you guys a build to fight it and to help you out in killing it. And the build is mostly in-game stuff. I believe Koshaz is now in a lower tier than it was before. You can actually fight it a bit earlier, so it should be easier to get some of the gear for this build. But anyway, I have the Chainblades, which are Hellion, and like I said before, Hellion Chainblades are the best in slot currently for the Chainblades. Very solid pick. And for my Chainblades, I have the Cruel Rift Strike Special. It's my favorite one, unlocked at level 8 in the Mastery system for Chainblades. And my mod is Serrated Blades, which is level 16 for the Chainblades. Now for my gear, I have the Reza Helmet and the Koshai chest, gloves, and feet with the Drask Lantern. And with this gear selection, I'm able to have 6 +6 perks, which are +6 Ethic Attunement, which is more lantern generation, +6 Conduit, which is more attack speed for using my lantern hold to cast, Evasive Fury, more attack speed for dodging attacks, Overpower, which is more damage versus behemoths if they're staggered, if you break apart, or if you interrupt them during their unstable attacks, and Predator, which is more damage for not taking damage, and this will be lost if you get hit for 15 seconds, so try to get hit, which I did get hit a couple times. It was a little rough of a fight. And lastly, we have Rage Hunter, which is more damage versus behemoths if they're enraged, which most of the time is if they're red. Pretty much, if a behemoth is red, that's an enraged mode, and you get more damage. So, Rage Hunter is pretty good on most behemoths. But basically, just use the tips I gave you throughout the fight, and this behemoth is pretty smooth using those tips. Solo, it's pretty easy. I did try playing in a group with the Warpike, which was roughly the same build. I'll leave a link to that build in the description, but it was a little bit more difficult. It's still fun though, and Shockjaw can be rough to fight in the beginning, but it's a really fun fight to learn, and I actually really love this fight. It's now currently my favorite Heroic Plus fight in the entire game, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I did. So that's the end of the video, guys. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to subscribe to Channel Dauntless content, and maybe consider checking out my Twitch. I'm a Dauntless partner. I stream on Twitch every Wednesday through Saturday, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central, and I'm very informative. I'm a little too informative sometimes, but it's a good time. I'm pretty good at the game. I teach folks the game. But aside from that, guys, if you want to use my Epic Games worker code in the Epic Games store, it helps me out a ton. And thank you again to everyone that's done that. it is beyond helpful, and I really appreciate the support. But y'all, thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.